All right, y'all, you're Locked On Falcons. I'm your host, Aaron Freeman, and today I am joined by Jarvis Davis, co-host of the ATL Day Ones podcast on Locked On Sports Atlanta. And today we're talking all about the keys to victory, how the Falcons can upset the 49ers. We'll be talking about George Kittle, the Falcons linebackers, and making some bold predictions on today's episode.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Sirius Black, the humble host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast. And today I am joined by none other than Jarvis Davis, one of the four hosts that you can hear and see every day on the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. And of course, Jarvis is the co-host of ATL Day Ones alongside Tanitra Batiste, and he is here with us to talk about this Week 6 matchup between the Falcons and 49ers. But before we get there, guys, I do want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They will help you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. And we thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons as well as Locked On Sports Atlanta your first listen each and every day. Of course, it's free and available Monday through Friday on a variety of podcast platforms, including Apple, Odyssey, Google, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube, and you will get the video version of the podcast the night before. Jarvis, as we do pretty much every week. Last week, unfortunately, you were not able to grace us with your appearance, so I had to basically BS my way through a podcast. So,
sorry
I
about
tried to do my best. But as we do each week when we have you on here, tell us and the listeners, what sort of do you see as the key to victory for the Falcons this weekend against the 49ers?
3 words. Run the football. And this is probably going to be the hardest test that the Falcons are going to be faced with, because the 49ers just have an amazing defense. And I think that's the one thing that Arthur Smith wants to do. And I think that, when you look at I was looking at the injury report as far as with the San Francisco 49ers, this may be their best opportunity to be able to run against this defense, because Arik Armstead didn't make the trip. We know what he brings to the table. He's a double-digit sack guy. Javon Kinlaw as well, and Nick Bosa hasn't practiced in the past couple of days. So when you think about that front and the strength of that defense, those are the guys that are the stalwarts of that defense. So when those guys are potentially may not be playing, I think that, this doesn't change anything for the Falcons. This is okay, yeah, we're coming into this game trying to run the football, but if all of those guys are going to be out, Arik Armstead being one of them, we know for a fact he's going to be out. But if you're talking about Bosa and Kinlaw not being there as well, that's something that the Falcons are going to have to take advantage of.
Yeah, and it's similar to what we were talking about against the Cleveland team, where they were dealing with some injuries up front, and we saw the Falcons have a lot of success running the football against that front. And one of the things I said yesterday on the crossover Thursday with the Lockdown 49ers guys is I think the 49ers backups are probably better than the Browns backups were. So I do think even if all of those guys are down, it still is going to be a challenge for this offensive line to do what they need to do. But as you say, I think running the football is going to be a key for this football team, because we know that's kind of the bread and butter of this offense. And so far, outside of the fourth quarter, the offense has been sort of the thing that's been steering the ship for this team so far this year.
No doubt about it. And I think to add to that, I think that Marcus Mariota is going to have to be up in that 65 to 75 yards rushing. I think if he can get to that number, because when you think about the type of pressure that San Francisco brings, and I think that, if, like you say, if those guys are not there, I would assume that DeMeco Ryans is going to come up with a way to bring pressure to Marcus Mariota, because, like I said, the backups with the backups and scheming those pressures into place. I think that's going to be something to do. But if Marcus Mariota can recognize those and basically either make the quick read or get out of there and take off running, I think those are some of the things that Marcus Mariota has to do in order to keep those chains moving for this offense.
Absolutely. And you look at the history of this 49ers run defense has been good for a while. But
Yes,
some of the
indeed.
teams that have had success against, you go back to 2020, Kyler Murray had a lot of success running the football with the Cardinals. You go back to last year, Jalen Hurts had like 82 yards rushing, I think, early in that season. And then the last 100-yard rusher against this 49ers defense was actually Justin Fields last year. It's, I think, the only individual 100-yard rushers that they gave up last year were Justin Fields and Jonathan Taylor. No offense to Caleb Huntley or Tyler Higbee. I don't know if they're quite on the Jonathan Taylor level, but I feel like
that's a safe bet.
can get to the Fields level, at least as a runner against this defense. So I think that could potentially be an X factor for this running game to really get going. If they have to not only defend Huntley and Williams and Algier, but also Marcus Mariota, I think will be certainly a challenge for this 49ers front.
No doubt about it. And I think that something that we saw in the last game against the oh goodness gracious, I had a brain freeze there against goodness,
I'm forgetting who we played last week.
Goodness gracious, the Bucks last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What is going on with me?
Great Jared Ruffin call. It was like out of sight, out of mind.
Like brain fart alert there. But again, last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you saw Todd Bowles is a guy who wants to get pressure. Like exactly what's going down when you go against a Todd Bowles defense, and I think that DeMeco Ryans brings some of those same thoughts, right, as far as how they approach offenses. So I think when you saw Arthur Smith make those adjustments in the second half, he started throwing those quick screens, getting the ball out, and making those defensive linemen run, and making those safeties have to take on offensive linemen when they start creeping up into the line of scrimmage. Those are some of the things that I think that are going to carry over to this week, because we know that DeMeco Ryans is going to bring some pressure, man. Those guys have a lot of sacks. Like I have sack envy looking at the San Francisco 49ers defense defensive numbers. So those are some of the things that I feel to be a carryover to this week, and you can definitely go ahead and book it that Arthur Smith is going to try to get that ball out as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So we will continue today's conversation here with Jarvis Davis. We'll talk a little bit more about the Falcons defense and how they handle George Kittle, of all people, who has had a lot of success the last couple of times he's faced the Falcons. And we'll talk about the linebacker position. We'll talk about the safeties. Maybe if Jarvis has an opinion on who he likes most in this Falcons defense, that can maybe not be a Kittle eraser, but at least someone who can keep him as contained as possible. And we'll get into that as we continue today's episode. But of course, since I have Jarvis Davis here, I have to plug the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family. 3 shows: Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, A to Z with Mark Zeno, and of course ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Tanisha Batiste, all on the same feed. And Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube is also the home for the Locked On Braves postcast, which you can check out now that the Braves are in the postseason, giving you that immediate reaction to hopefully more Braves wins moving forward, as well as the Locked On Falcons postcast, where some guy named Aaron Freeman and another guy named Jarvis Davis give you the lowdown each and every Sunday live after the game on the Falcons wins, losses, and possibly ties. So check out Locked On Sports Atlanta wherever you get your podcast, including on YouTube. And guys, I want to talk about LinkedIn Jobs. They're here to make it easier for you to find all the right people that you want to talk to faster and for free. We know the Falcons are looking for the right people to lock down George Kittle, and you may be looking for the right people that help out your team and your small business this fall. So create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach the world's largest professional network of over 800 million people LinkedIn Jobs helps you spread the word that you're hiring, gives you the simple tools like screening questions, so it can make it easy for you to focus on just the right candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you want to hire, who you want to interview. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons here, talking with Jarvis Davis, getting into the conversation about how the Falcons slow down George Kittle, which will be a challenge for this defense. I also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL, particularly on Friday, where they give their key predictions, breaking down the 5 biggest games going into Week 6, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, you're going to get betting advice from the leading experts at BetOnline. Follow NFL key predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, Jarvis, earlier this week on Locked On Falcons, I spent a good portion talking about what my thoughts were on the linebacker position and how those guys have performed so far this year. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that as well. But, that's kind of bridges to a conversation about, is there some concern for you about the injury to Michael Walker, who's missed 2 days of practice with that groin injury? Do you feel like that's going to be a detriment for this Falcon team, especially going up against a tight end like George Kittle? Or do you feel like the Falcons can overcome that because maybe instead of having a linebacker like Michael Walker covering Kittle in this game, you feel better about them maybe having Troy Anderson or a safety like Richie Grant or Jalen Hawkins being better suited for the job? I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that situation?
To be honest with you, like the first thing to come to my mind is when you think about the linebacker core is deep. Like I think that's where they have the most depth. When you talk about guys who actually can play football, right? You got Rashaan Evans, who's a veteran who understands DNP defense and what he wants to do. Like you said, Michael Walker not being in there, that could have an effect on that, obviously. And you're probably going to have Troy Anderson play a little bit more than you want to, from thinking from a DNP's standpoint. So because they've been using him, I think, to maximize his talents, right? Because they've been using him in a lot of blitz situations, not necessarily running things and calling the plays and all that thing like that. But hey, we're gonna bring you here on third down. We want you to rush the pass. Like, hey, we come in right here. And I think this is what probably going to be the advantage that you kind of touched on, as far as, hey, on this particular down, it's third and long. Go get 85. Like, we want you to guard him, and that's it. That's all we want you to do, and we'll worry about the rest. The other 10 guys can worry about the rest of what's going on. So I think using Anderson to his fit his skill set as to what you're asking him to do, I think that's going to help the Falcons, going forward. And also, when you think about what's going on at that safety position, I think a lot of people aren't really talking about it as much as they probably should, because when you think about how people were looking at Richie Grant last year, like the man did a complete 180 when you think about just from a production standpoint, and as far as just being out there and DNP's trusting what Grant is being able to do. And I think that when you see some of the things that Grant has been doing on the field, just from picking the ball off, the end of the game in Seattle, and just being able to just go out there and just be good in coverage and coming up and making tackles on the line of scrimmage when need be, and being that guy that can clean up all the mess that may get through that defense. So I think that, Troy Anderson will be a good weapon for Pease to use against Kittle, because, hey, man, the guy can run. He's an athlete. So I think that obviously you would like to have Michael Walker at full strength, but if he's not able to go, I think that Troy Anderson can fit in specifically for this game, because, hey, they have a dynamic tight end. We know how the Falcons have struggled over the years, and they've had a little trouble this year guarding that tight end.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So I'll be curious to see how Anderson handles that assignment. He certainly has the athleticism to keep up with Kittle, but obviously, George Kittle's George Kittle for a reason. And you look back at the last 2 times the Falcons have played, the 49ers, going back to that 2019 game, it was, Ricardo Allen was just like, hey, man, I'm doing my best I can do here.
Hey,
Had
that's
like
it.
13 catches for like 134
Right.
yards. And it was like, hey,
Yes,
I,
it is
I
what it
can't,
is, bro. Like, I wasn't blessed
what do
with
you
that
want
type
me
of
to do?
talent.
And then last year, Kittle had 6 catches for 93 yards, just consistently, particularly when the Falcons were utilizing their cover 2. They just seemed to he just split that seam down the middle and was generating big play after big play in that matchup. So we'll see if the Falcons are better prepared to deal with him as that playmaker in the passing game. And I kind of like Richie Grant in this matchup because you go back to training camp where it seemed like Richie Grant was the only guy that the Falcons had that could keep pace with Kyle Pitts. And in the last couple of weeks, I feel like he's done a pretty solid job covering tight ends, certainly better than what we've seen from some of the other guys. Like, because I know Njoku gave Walker some fits in that Browns game, and then it seemed like the Falcons kind of switched to having Grant cover him a little bit more, and then Njoku was a little quieter after that point. And early in the Bucks game, it seemed like they were getting the ball, the guys like Otten, on some of that short stuff. But after a while, it seemed like Grant kind of had that lockdown. So I kind of like Richie Grant in this matchup more so than some of the other options going up against George Kittle. What do you think about that?
I'm with it because only thing I'm with it because, like I said, I think Grant has been really solid in coverage this year. And the only thing that I've seen when the Falcons have struggled with tight ends is because a lot of the times, like when teams are having success in the run and they go that play action, a lot of times those tight ends get lost. And I think that you're going to have to put your hands on a guy like Kittle. You can't let him have free releases off the line of scrimmage. Those are some of the things that you have to do. You can't let that dude just an athlete like that just run down and roam down through your little zones and everything like that. If he comes through your zone, where you are, you have the right to defend your area. So that means drop your shoulder and pop him doggone right in his chest as he runs by and try to get into his route. So those are some of the things that are going to help throw off an offense like Kyle Shanahan, because we know, and I say Kyle Shanahan because we know he's the puppet master in that offense and what's going on for the San Francisco 49ers. So it's all about timing when they start getting things going with the 49ers. So if they're able to throw off that time a little bit, throw off Kittle's timing and making sure that he's not getting to where he needs to be in a timely manner, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. So, we'll get into some bold predictions a little bit later here on the episode, but I just want to throw this out there because, I was looking at Kittle's numbers so far this year and I'm just like, why is it all we hear from the fantasy people is how bad a season Kyle Pitts is having, even though George Kittle's averaging like less targets and less yards per game than Kyle Pitts in his first 3 games. Yet, like, there's nobody in the fantasy community going on Twitter every single day cracking George Kittle jokes like they
throwing
are cracking
the ball.
Kyle Pitts is blocking too much jokes. So,
Right.
I just feel like, if Richie Grant can, do his thing and the rest of these guys do their thing this weekend, I feel like, it's a challenge to the fantasy community out there. Like, can we get some George Kittle jokes on Twitter?
Right.
In addition to the Kyle Pitts ones, just spread the hate or spread the love or whatever you want to call it. So that's all I ask for the fantasy football people out there in the world. But we'll continue today's episode talking more about bold predictions, and we'll get into that as we continue today's episode, guys. But first, when it comes to bold predictions, you got to head to the number one source for all your football betting needs and info this season, as of course, betonline.net. If you feel like you have a bold prediction about the outcome of this weekend's matchup between the Falcons, 49ers, or any other matchups, around the NFL or in Major League Baseball, college football, MMA, boxing, golf, BetOnline, of course, is that continued source for your sports wagering information, including live in-game betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. And this week's line for the Falcons was 5.5. Now the Falcons are 6-point underdogs to this 49ers team. The Falcons have covered every week so far. I'm feeling good about them going 6-0 in terms of this point spread. If you guys feel good about that, or it's weird because usually when I say, hey, the Falcons are going to cover, they don't cover, right? Or if do whatever the opposite, but it's like they're on the streak. So maybe you guys think that streak is going to end this week, whatever. But head on over to the website at betonline.net. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So wrapping up today's episode here with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and I guess I should go ahead and let the people know that if you want to check out Locked On Sports Atlanta, if you have Roku or Amazon Fire TV, it's now available with the Locked On Sports Atlanta app, giving you that great local sports coverage 24/7 and for free. Just download the Locked On Sports Atlanta app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. So Jarvis, give you the floor. You got any bold predictions out there that you want to let the listeners know, so that when we talk Sunday after the game on Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Falcons postcast, live on the Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube page, you can sit here and say, you can be petty and be like, yeah, I told you guys this was coming. You got anything for us?
You know what? To be honest with you, yes, I do. I was looking at some things. I was looking at the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, and I started thinking about some things, right? Grady Jarrett is having probably like a all-pro type year. Yeah, I said it. A Pro Bowl, definitely. Guaranteed right now. That's how I feel in my life. Anytime you have Tom Brady talking about he's had nightmares about Grady Jarrett, like, come on, man. Like, that's all-pro worthy right there. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I started looking at some of the San Francisco 49ers offensive line. Then I started looking. I looked back at the tape from that Bucs game, and I was just like, Taquan Graham, he's been playing some good football. So you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say it, man. I'm gonna just go ahead and get to it. Grady Jarrett and Taquan Graham will have a sack this year. Not this year. This year. This game against the San Francisco 49ers, because I think they're gonna. When you look at that tandem, and specifically in the run game, I think that they're going to do some things, but I think that they're going to be able to take advantage. Two Falcons defensive linemen are going to be able to take advantage of somebody else's offensive line, interior offensive line. Who would have thought that in 2022, going into the sixth game of the season, that the Falcons defensive line is going to dominate and take advantage of some weaknesses that opposing offensive line may have up front? What team am I talking about, Aaron? Like, this is crazy. Like, I feel like I'm really crazy right now. But not all seriousness, I think that Taquan Graham and Grady Jarrett are due for another good one, because I think they're going to be able to take advantage of some of those flaws that the San Francisco 49ers have up front.
Yeah, I think, you slipped and said, a sack this year. That would have been a very bold prediction last year, because
right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What?
That ain't too bold.
But yeah, like, my kind of bold prediction is kind of piggybacking off of some of the guys we just talked about. I think the Falcons will be able to pick off Jimmy Garoppolo twice. This Sunday.
Nice. I like
that.
I like that.
If I'm gonna be so bold as to predict one, I think Richie Grant or Troy Anderson will get one of them, and I feel like AJ Terrell will get the other one. I feel AJ
don't catch it this time,
one, and then the other one will be either Richie Grant or Troy Anderson, possibly. When they're covering someone like a George Kittle. So that's my bold prediction for this weekend. Two turnovers, 2 takeaways for the Falcons defense this weekend.
How about that, Aaron? Like, we're talking about the Falcons defense, and it sounds realistic to force turnovers. Like I don't know, man. Like, I feel like we're in La La Land right now in this last segment, because that's like, coming into this season, would have never said no crap like that ever. Like, what? Falcons players getting sacks and turning people over and getting picks and stuff, picking the ball off? No, that's absurd. But not this Falcons defense, not this 2022 Falcons defense. These guys, Dean Pease has got these boys cooking, man. And I think that as the season goes along, you're going to see these guys can continue to get better and better and better.
Absolutely. And guys, that's going to do it for us. We'll leave you on that note. And we thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen. Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check out Peacock and Williamson to get that coverage of this weekend's matchups, all the other matchups, including the 49ers and Falcons over on Peacock and Williamson or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you will see Jarvis and I on Sunday afternoon, I guess, shortly after the final whistle on the Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube page. So make sure you hit that
Yes.
bell. Make sure you subscribe so that you can be there when we go live. So, it's weird having this level of confidence, Jarvis. Like,
I know, like it feels so weird. It's just like, man, we're in for a rude awakening, or what?
and then, like earlier this year, like I want to say, like, going into that Saints game, we felt kind of good about the team going into that week, but it was just like I don't know
Who knows? We don't know.
why we should feel good about this Falcon team. And now we're like 6 weeks into the season. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Actually feel good about the team, and like I don't have any pit in my stomach saying
Not at all.
a thing like that. So
Not at all.
hopefully this is not the week they let us down.
But check this out though. Like, y'all can go ahead and book it. Y'all can drop it in the comments if I don't do it. Like, if doggone Taquan Graham and Grady Jarrett get a doggone sack on Sunday, please, I am firing up a cigar on this doggone podcast. Like, I'm going to my wife, you know what I'm saying? She don't want me smoking in the house, but damn it, that one gonna get fired up that day. I'm firing up a stogie, man, right here on the postcast. Let's go.
There you go. So now you definitely got to check out the postcast, guys. So subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta, and of course, subscribe to Locked On Falcons on all your preferred podcast platforms, guys. But we really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Getting geared up for this game, and hopefully, the Falcons will allow us to end this weekend great with a win. So we will check you guys out on that postcast Sunday afternoon. Appreciate it, guys. Till then.